Well, 35 minutes later, I'm finally live streaming. But again, my video is linked up with my audio. But I'm going to go for it anyway, because for the most part, this show is just me talking and reading the book. So, in this series, we've been about the Lion's Share box from the John Collins Black Treasure Hunt. And what I've been doing is I've been going through and reading the book and getting information and trying to relate it back to the thrill of the chase. And so here we are. We're with chapter 8. And again, these chapters tend to build upon each other. And we're talking about Beauty's Bespoken Treasures. Yeah, Beauty's Bespoken Treasures. And it says, know the past, see the future. So if you know the past, you can see the future. Now, again, are these going to be informational pieces about the past and future box? Because he's pretty much just laying it right out there in front of you, past and future, if you will. And in this chapter, the red quote is, our thoughts and imagination are the only real limits to our possibilities. And this is a quote by Orison Swett Marden. And I've heard of this Marden. I think he's a poet. I think he has a lot of various quotes named uh, throughout there. And I have heard of this actual Marden guy. So again, know the past, see the future. So at this point, I think John Collins Black is talking to one person, and he's saying that you have seen the past, you know what you know, but here's what you don't know, and that is here's your future. I authored a children's picture book titled Our Unbreakable Thread, published by Marvel Press. Now, I think this is the point where you're supposed to find out where is the company Marvel Press headquartered. What is its business structure? Um, this is his identity business wise right now, and it was published the same year as this book. Because of this timing and for fun, I decided to leave an extra clue or two within my children's book about the location of our treasure. And here he's referring to this as being our treasure. And so um, I think that the Marvel Press, and I don't know if Marvel Press printed this book. I'm going to go quickly back to the front and see if this is. This is actually published by Treasure Books Inc. and distributed by Baker and Taylor. My copy was printed in uh, Canada. Most photography was shot by Jamie Biver. Some images were donated by the Arkin Stone in Dallas, Texas. So, I don't know. My copy is 2024. Uh, and so uh, uh, you can go find the Treasure Books Inc. at www.treasureinside.com. So I think it would be instructive maybe to look back and see if we can figure where that is. Um, Our Unbreakable Thread was written as a homage to my children, my wife, and my parents. As much as I love dreaming about the future, I am grateful for all of my connections to the past. No doubt this is one of the reasons why I love traditions, which help formulate the ties that bind families together. Traditions bring people closer and provide opportunities for joy. Oh, I got a drink. I read joy again. And I hope I'm streaming because I can't really tell if there's anybody out there. Many of my favorite memories have been with my friends and family during celebrations of Thanksgiving and Christmas. And of course, who doesn't love Halloween? Traditions, okay, Halloween is when I bring out the headless horseman, right? I bring out the Finn ghost. And so Halloween, I think, could be an important tradition. Traditions enliven every culture. They come in all shapes and sizes, from the observances of Ramadan to Yom Kippur, to the celebrations of La Tomatina and the running of the bulls. Traditions like a durable yarn connect us through a lineage of fellowship and ceremony. Now, I don't know if he's talking about a durable yarn, meaning a story, because if you were like in the group of people who are in like the Westerners, they celebrate a good yarn, if you will, a good story. There's a shared joy of humanity here. Again, he said joy again. Something that provides communal stability even as the world around us rapidly changes. Traditions provide emotional connections to the past. This is why when you and I take time to learn about another person's traditions, we understand that person at a deeper level. Sharing traditions is a chance to connect. Likewise, dismissing the traditions of others as inconsequential is a huge missed opportunity. And, some people have traditions of going to the art fair, if you will, in Santa Fe, the art market as they have it. So I'm going. Good, fantastic. Thanks for the feedback. Uh, and if you're offered an opportunity to drive Forrest Fenn down to the art market, maybe you should take that opportunity because you're learning more about his traditions. I made the mistake in my treasure hunt of outwardly saying that myself and Forrest Fenn did not have as many things as common as I would have liked to have had in common. And maybe what he's pointing out is this mistake that I missed a huge opportunity to learn more about Forrest Fenn, and I passed on that opportunity, and that person was offended. I don't know if that's the life lesson here, but I'm going to take it as a possible lesson. In other words, if you're invited to John Collins Black's house, or if you invite yourself unwantedly to his house, embrace whatever he wants you to do when you're there. Okay, one of the most blatant examples of such a loss was the American Indian Removal Act of 1830. In a selfish and racist decision, the U.S. government chose to ignore the cultures and traditions of Native Americans across our country and to relocate them from their native properties. The lands on which these people lived had much to do with the traditions that shaped their cultures over time. The lands themselves stood as an emotional uh, uh, epicenter that helped define their sense of identity. And then he goes on to talk about the oldest North American tribe is the Hopi, who migrated north from Mexico around 500 BC. The Hopi customs and tradition extend back thousands of years. And so he's going to go through this in the next part of the chapter and talk about how the Hopi word means peaceful and polite. Practicing a life in harmony with nature is important to the Hopi. They have intensive, rich ceremonies filled with mythology, again, and legends. Their dances are distinguished by their vibrant colors and vitality. So this is the second mention of some sort of dancing that's involved in the book. There was earlier a picture of these figures that looked like they were little stick figures. I now think that those might be marionettes uh, because it looked like they were dangling from strings, but I'm not 100% sure. Uh, One thing that you have to understand is the Cherokee Trail of Tears didn't just involve the removal act of these Indians wasn't just the Plains Indians. It also involved Indians back in North Carolina, Indians back in Tennessee, Indians that lived, and you can look at and look up the Indian Removal Act of 1830, and you'll find out that there's more Native Americans that were relocated in the Trail of Tears, especially if you look at the Cherokee Trail of Tears. Uh, so in 1921, a baby boy was born into the Badger clan. So if you like the Wisconsin connection of being in the Badger clan, if you will, his name was Charles Laloma. Charles was an obedient child who grew to be a gentleman. He lived out his days on the Hopi reservation, following the Hopi calendar farming. He participated in the ceremonies, and as a snake priest, and is the leader of the Hopi bean dance ceremonies. As a man, Charles held a deep respect for his past and Hopi traditions. As an artist, Charles was a creative rebel. He was a visionary. He bucked the norm. He broke tradition. He created and designed Native American jewelry using techniques that had never been conceptualized before. As a jewelry maker, Charles Loloma didn't just create outside the box, he redesigned the box completely. During his life, Charles became the most prominent and famous Native American jeweler designer in the world. His jewelry pieces have been featured in more museums and exhibitions than any other Native American artist. Today, Charles Loloma's jewelry pieces are the rarest and most sought after Native American jewelry anywhere. So, to realize how far he transcended, you must realize that there basically was no Hopi tradition of jewelry making. Instead, the Hopi were known for their ceramics, textiles, and basket weaving. His parents were no different. Charles' dad was a well known fabric weaver. His mother made baskets. Charles Loloma's artwork began as a painter. He decorated his high school building with a large mural so captivating they drew attention of a successful Native American artist named Fred Cabote. Fred invited Charles to accompany him to San Francisco. On Treasure Island, uh, in the San Francisco Bay, Charles was one of three Native Americans to paint installations in the Indian Court of the island's federal building. These installations were applauded by critics and the public alike. Over 500,000 came to Treasure Island to see them. 2 years later, Charles was asked to paint murals at the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, in New York City, for a large Indian art exhibition. His murals impressed their audiences again. At the age of 20, Charles was already nationally recognized. But Charles wanted to experiment with new arts. He returned home and joined the military. After 3 years of duty, Charles used the GI Bill to pay for classes in pottery making. Despite pottery being perceived as a women-only craft in the Hopi tradition, Charles and his wife opened a pottery studio. Instead of working on the traditional techniques, they innovated. It wasn't long before their pottery was received high praise and recognition. Despite his success with ceramics, Charles found himself particularly drawn to jewelry making. Well, painting and pottery, there had been for Charles to learn from, but his jewelry, there is no one on the reservation to teach him. So Charles had to become truly unique. The Gallup International, the Gallup Intertribal Ceremony was the largest Native American arts and crafts fair in the region at the time. Okay, so remember earlier where I said that if you have an opportunity to learn about somebody else and they provide you an opportunity, and the opportunity they provide to you is to go look at some Native American art down on the plaza, maybe you should take that opportunity to do that, even if you have no interest in it. Now, let me tell you what my approach was. My approach was this. I and this is how I think. I think about things like this. It would be selfish of myself to pretend to want to learn about something that somebody has a huge interest in, and that I would rather not be fake and pretend that I liked something that they were enamored with or enjoyed. I prefer to tell them up front that it's not my cup of tea and that somebody else would enjoy this experience more than me. I guess I maybe should learn from this and be open to new experiences because it seems like the theme of the book uh, here is to provide information on how to be a better treasure hunter. And to be a better treasure hunter, you need to accept those opportunities that come before you that other people present that are learning experiences for you because doesn't that person wants to teach you something or give you a new experience that you don't have, and you should accept it for that, even if you're not interested in it at all. Because perhaps you might become interested in it. I don't know. Message taken, got it, understand it. Sorry, I apologize. It wasn't long before. Okay, so anyway, Charles brought his first jewelry pieces here for public display. However, the fair rejected his jewelry, telling Charles his pieces were not Indian enough. As it were, these opinions came from the white business owners that owned and controlled the fair. They told Charles his jewelry would never sell. And so this kind of brings you back to some of the experience of Forrest Fenn and Rex Aerosmith, and how Rex Aerosmith became one of the leading people who were involved with the arts and Indian Native American festival in Santa Fe. This was followed by a second award. Eventually, awards flooded in from all over, and Loloma won first place in 7 consecutive years at the Scottsdale National Indian Art Exposition alone. Collectors began requesting commissions. A rising wave of interest grew for his work. Now, it's going to be at this point where I'm going to give you the additional information about Charles Loloma. He spent most of his time in Arizona. He actually died, I believe, in Scottsdale, Arizona, or very close to that. He was involved in an automobile accident from which he didn't recover completely. And um, I guess what I'm saying is that, remember in the very first part of this book, we were talking about Scotty, right? We were talking about Scotty, beam me up, Scotty, right? And then one person that was responsible for bringing a lot of the gems and the minerals to this project was another guy by the name of Scott, right? And if you will remember that when we get to a future chapter, one of Michael Jordan's nemesis was Byron Scott, who played for the Lakers. Okay, I'm just making that shit up. But anyway, the point is, I think that this is another opportunity for, and in the next chapter, we're going to talk about confirmation bias, right? But anyway, this is another way in which to look at how Scott comes into play here. At the time Charles designed this bracelet, now in our treasure, most Native American jewelry consists of traditional silver and turquoise designs that are still common. Charles' inlay work was something far different. It influenced a new generation of Native American artists. And you can see he's using different color and different stones other than the traditional palette, if you will, for uh, silver and turquoise. In '63, Charles was invited to Paris, where his jewelry was featured on Parisian fashion runways. In '64, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who, by the way, is from Texas, gifted one of Charles' necklaces to the Queen of the Netherlands. PBS produced a film about La Loma, and Charles was invited to become a board member of the Indian Historical Society of Princeton. In less than 10 short years since he began making jewelry, exhibits of his pieces were now prominent across the U.S. and Europe. Olga Vanna Wright, wife of Frank Lloyd Wright, commissioned 2 bracelets from Charles. When Charles cast the first bracelet, he made an error that left a hole in the metal's design. Charles showed his mistake to Mrs. Wright. She asked if he would put a stone in the hole rather than throw the bracelet away. Charles loved Vanna's suggestion so much that this initial blunder became an inspiration for future pieces. Charles' stone inlay technique became his second signature creation. So a hole in the middle is right. Okay, so I've just been reading the book. I'm going to hold it up. Uh, for those that maybe don't have the book, sorry about that. For those that don't have the book, they can see, some of the artwork that we're talking about. And here's that other piece. So, indeed, Charles Loloma had a specific kind of artwork in which he created. Despite all of his commercial success, Charles Loloma continued to live in Hauteville. His home was one of many tightly clustered homes on the Hopi Reservation, homes with no running water, phones, or electricity. Charles tended the fields and played music. He mimed, he mimed as a clown to entertain the children. He enjoyed the majestic land around him. Again, the use of the word majesty, magic, anyway, which inspired his art. When asked what he wanted to be remembered for, Charles simply said, "I'd like to be known for beauty." Appropriately, the name Loloma means beauty. Isn't that clever how he kind of brought that back together? The word Loloma actually means beauty, and he wanted to be known for beauty. His house sits right on the edge of Hopi, so when you look out there, you see vastness. Charles was that way. He was just so vast. And this was a quote from Debbie Drye, Drye, of the Hopi tribe. Charles' artwork was always influenced by his love of Hopi land. "I wish to create a relationship between the earth and myself," Charles said, reflecting on the rock he picked up from the ground. He remarked, "I want to make the soul come out. I feel the stone and think, not to conquer it, but to help it express itself." And so I guess the point here is that uh, the relationship is between uh, John Collins Black and his eventual finder is not to be one of, um, let's say, a competition. The finder is not to be a conqueror because the person that puts out the treasure hunt is the one that's there to help you express your feelings and your find. I don't know. Charles would mentor only two people in his style of jewelry making. One of those people is his niece. Her name is Son Wei, Son, Son, Son Wei. She still makes jewelry today. One of her rings is now in our treasure. I don't know who the other person is, but it could be Evely Sabate. And Evely Sabate is the woman who created the belt buckle that we always saw Forrest Fenn wearing. Okay, and so this mentorship of two people uh, could maybe be transferred over to the fact that the treasure creator is only going to mentor two people or one. I don't know. As Loloma is the masculine word for beauty, Sonway is the feminine form. Sonway began studying under her uncle when she was just 17. They worked together for over 20 years. Her jewelry is as rare as her uncle's at present. Sonway creates only a very limited number of new pieces each year. Sonway has continued Charles' jewelry making style, albeit with a more feminine flair. Despite how revolutionary Charles' creative designs were, there was always a passion for infusing into the art and essence of Hopi traditions. Here's a quote from Sonway. Uh, Charles taught that beauty is all around us in Hopi, in the environment, in the culture, in the ceremony. By combining elements from what is a part of my everyday life and with the finest of ideas and finest of materials, I can interpret a part of Hopi for people to see and wear. Like her uncle, Sonway owns a plane and is a pilot. Sonway and Charles flew together often. From the sky, they'd gain a fresh perspective on the beautiful rock formations of their territory below. These views became inspiration for their inlay designs. Oh, a marble gaze, if you will. A marble gaze. We used our planes to fly around Hopi in places like Canyon de Chelly to look at rock formations. The stones on the mesas are how our inlay design came to be. It's a bird's eye view. And so maybe, I don't know if we were talking about Forrest Fenn and relating this back to Forrest Fenn, maybe you were supposed to approach his poem as if you were seeing these things from above as a pilot, like Charles. And for purposes of John Collins Black's treasure hunt, perhaps there is this era, or aura of needing to approach things from above. I hearken this back to the chapter that was about um, Amelia Earhart and Amelia Earhart's airplane. Uh, okay, so let's just extrapolate these ideas a little bit further and bring them back together. All right, so we have an aviational influence in this whole entire thing. We have Scotty, right? Scotty is the person from Star Trek that would beam you up, right? Provide travel. Okay, you have Amelia Earhart, who is a person who, with her aircraft, flew to many different places around the globe. And now we have in Arizona an artist who practiced much of his work in his home state of Arizona. We have the error in the book that said Santa Fe, Arizona, that finally got corrected. And we have this additional information about Arizona. Okay, so I'm getting a heavy feeling about this. So if we would then go look at Arizona, right? What would be the airport? The airport would be the Sky Harbor Airport that serves the greater Scottsdale Phoenix area. I want you to remember that because I'm going to bring back us to I'm going to bring us back to Sky Harbor when I get to a future chapter. Okay? I've just mentioned it now. And the other thing is that we've talked about the Phoenix Suns. Sonwe, the Phoenix Suns. No. And he likes basketball, right? And later on, I'm going to express my affection for Michael Jordan, who played baseball in Scottsdale, Arizona, when he left basketball to explore his passion for baseball. And for anybody that can right now put in the chat what number Michael Jordan's jersey was when he played for the Scorpions. No, not the band, the Scorpions. No, I don't even know. I will get that information to you when we get to the chapter on Michael Jordan. Okay? Past and future box. Scottsdale, Arizona. Okay, more about the Hopi. So, during my research on Charles Aloma and Sonwe, I became fascinated by the history of the Hopi. For centuries after their migration from Mexico over 2,500 years ago, the Hopi and their culture thrived. But in the 1600s, that began to change. The Spanish and other Europeans arrived, and with them came deadly smallpox. Uh, Later in the 1800s, much of the Hopi land was seized by the government, U.S. government. Uh, they forced the Hopi to cut their hair. They pressured them to convert to Christianity. And when the Hopi resisted, their chief Lolombaga was sent to prison in Alcatraz. Alcatraz stands less than 3 miles from Treasure Island, where Charles Loloma murals later blazed. Now, if you relate the story about the Pokemon to Alcatraz, right? That's a prison reference. And if you are somebody that can only clap with hands that are like this is another reference in the book to that. Now, these murals later blazed. So I don't know. I think one of these puzzles has to do with a mural because he has mentioned these murals a number of different times. And I don't know if there's a specific mural that we're going to find. He says the treasures are out in the wilderness, not really the. He said in this interview recently that he doesn't like these inner city-based solves. He kind of shrugged his shoulders at that. But then again, who knows? The Hopi calendar and most of its ceremonies center around prosperity for its people because of the size and locations of the reservations. That well-being has to be cultivated in severe desert conditions. Food production continues to be a major focus. Hopi petrographs are carved throughout the reservations and surrounding lands. These are rich in symbolism and tradition. The Tutanvina petroglyph in the Grand Canyon alone covers over 150 giant rocks and more than 5,000 Hopi drawings that detail a Hopi historical record over 1,000 years old. If I was going to do some treasure hunting, I really think that that would be something I'd want to go see. I'd really like to go see this petroglyph that's uh, incorporates over uh, 5,000 drawings. If I sound overly plussed about Hopi history, forgive me. I find the tradition and resilience of these people inspirational. Despite having had so much taken from them, the Hopi prove that many of the finest treasures are also the simplest. Their trove is stocked with a wealth of community, tradition, and sustainability. Still, even from the most ancient traditions, new visions of the future can arise, kind of like a phoenix. Charles Laloma and San Luis jewelry shows us that. As you can probably tell, I am an advocate of getting to know the histories and traditions of as many cultures as we can. It builds bridges. Okay, now I'm going to point out bridges here because I truly believe that there is a bridge structure involved in the solve. Okay, there's going to be some sort of bridge structure involved, and I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out. Yet beyond that, learning about the traditions of others gives us a perspective of their own. It illuminates the unbreakable threads that not only bind generations together, but also interweave us all. Now that is a really bizarre sentence. So I think it's important. And this is the third or fourth time he's used the word illuminate. Uh, and illuminate the unbreakable threads that not only bind generations together, but also interweave us all. Learning about other cultures is an exercise in keeping our minds free and open. This is an important practice because when people believe there is just one right way of doing things, they may begin to see those things that only confirm what they already believe to be true. This can lead to a condition called confirmation bias. And beware, confirmation bias is a treasure hunter's most dreaded foil. For this reason, it deserves a closer look. Okay, so I will point out that in the book there is this Hopi calendar. And, if you're familiar with the back of the book, you've seen the coins that go along with the individual treasure hunts. And I'm just going to ask which treasure hunt does that angle in the middle most closely represent the Katsina versus non-Katsina season? I would say that would most closely represent the past and future box. That's what I would call it. Some people have tried to figure out this calendar and what it means. It's got to mean something. I'm not sure what it means, but I guess that, the non-Katsina season and the Katsina season, I'm not sure which is which. But it appears like the non-Katsina season runs from July to December. And January, February, March, April, May, and June, and part of July, end up being the cats in a season. The cats in a season. Now, this immediately makes me think of the Catskill Mountains, right? The Catterskills, right? I don't know. Some places are only open through July through December. I don't know if that dial actually makes the most sense. But anyway, there's that. Well, what's going on in the chat? Looks like Fantastic's here. The Bunghole, the Kid. Jeff's here. Nomadic. And the Stick. Divine. Well, good. I'm glad I got a few people listening to the show tonight. I'm just working myself through the book. There's treasure inside, talking about things that pop into my mind about the treasure and that type of thing. So the next chapter is chapter 9, and what I learned from the previous chapter is that if some treasure creator gives you an opportunity to experience something new, and it has to do with somebody else's culture, maybe you should jump on board and do that. even if you're pretending to enjoy it. Which I've always felt. I mean, I'm one of these people, unfortunately, that think it's more inappropriate to suck up to somebody, to pretend that you like what they're showing you, uh, when you don't have the greatest interest in it. Now, if Forrest Finn's showing me his peace pipe, I'm excited about that, right? Because here, this is a piece of history, that's went through how many hands, and now one person has it, or the first arrowhead. These are personal possessions of an individual that they own and they covet. Going to some place where people have made things that they want to sell you is a different experience than being in the presence of somebody and their possessions. In the previous, I think there's joy. In the latter, there could be joy, but if you're just going through the motions, then I don't know. So the next chapter, chapter 9, put him in number 9. Number 9, there's 9 clues in the poem. Let's look at number 9. All right, so the golden chalice. And this is the subtitle of this chapter is confirmation bias. The least questioned assumptions are often the most questionable. And this is a quote from Paul Broca. And the explanation requiring the fewest assumptions is most likely to be correct. And this is the William Occam's razor quote, if you will. Jeff is saying that the number for Michael Jordan when he played in Arizona was 45. I don't know. I can't remember. I have it written in my notes in the book when we get to the Jordan chapter. But I can't independently confirm that right now. Sorry. Okay. So Oxford's dictionary defines confirmation bias as the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs or theories. Like an alluring spider, confirmation bias has been entangling treasure seekers in its web since the dawn of time. So I guess when you're talking about spidey sense, if you will, remember at the beginning of the book, he says that you need to understand and make sure that your spidey sense is working. He's telling you to not fall for the confirmation bias. Interpreting information in a way that confirms ideas that we want to believe or that we've decided are true can get us stuck. It's an antithetical. It's antithetical to success. Still, it's a mighty difficult temptation to resist. Impatience, arrogance, or overeagerness can convince us to make assumptions. If these assumptions cloud how we consider new information, we can become trapped in a netting of preconceived notions. When infected by its venom, even the memories you and I choose to hold on to can skew a picture. Can skew a picture in our minds that is neither accurate nor precise. If you want to find the treasures we are seeking, we must remain rooted onto the firm ground of reality, which the firm ground of reality, I suppose, is the Jack Stoof found the treasure. Nothing good was ever gained by rushing to a false conclusion. Confirmation bias should be avoided at any cost. At over 10,000 feet of elevation in the high mountain ranges of the Andes in Peru exists a structure unlike any other in the world. When Spanish explorers first arrived at the Chavin de Juntar, I don't know. I'm just going to call this the Chavin because I don't know if it's the Chavin de Juntar, but during the 16th century. Okay, so I think this is important. When Spanish explorers first arrived at the Chavin during the 16th century, they craned their necks up at its 45-foot walls, from which high, massive carved heads protruded. They pondered it in amazement. I think this is a very important stitch thread of information that the author is providing to you, because the language as it's written here is so jumping off the page as being something important. And the fact that he gives you a picture of a wall on the next page, I think lends very further and more confirmation that it's important to look at how this might be important. Okay? Uh, so, people craning their necks up at its 45-foot walls. Okay, if you relate this to the Pokemon chapter, um, the people that first went to New Orleans were craning their necks, looking up at what, a building taller than they'd ever seen before, and they rode what, an elevator, and they met a revolving door. So again, looking up at something, I think is linked to the back of the book. And it might have to do with the heads, the presidential heads of Dickies, who famously made these heads of the presidents. You can look into that some more. The explorers walked around the structure, but could not ascertain how to gain access through its massive walls. Chauvin, believed to be built around 900 BC, was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its existence made no rational sense to them. In an attempt to understand it, the onlookers made wild assumptions, coming up with stories that could explain the huge edifice. Okay, so somewhere in one of these treasure quests, you're going to be looking up at something that's 45 foot tall, and you can't figure out why it's there. Why would somebody build such a thing? Is the question you're going to be asking. And I don't know what it's about. I don't know which treasure you're looking for, but there will be a treasure where you will be looking up at something and you will have these same questions of what is it? What is this huge edifice all about? To me, it's the Sam Houston statue. Uh, One explorer who wrote back to Spain that the architecture of Chaban de Hunter was built by a race of giants who had carved their life-size portraits into the high stone walls. Upon inspection, another explorer insisted that the building was nothing less than an ancient fortress, so immense that it had successfully defended its creatures from would-be attackers for hundreds of years. Confirmation bias was in full effect, and their ideas were all wrong. These early Spanish explorers weren't the only ones to become confused and confounded by the Chaban. Why the temple was built and how it was used remained a topic of debate for archaeologists even into the 20th century. The sense of mystery around, another use of the word mystery, around Chaban seemed to feed scholars' desperation for evidence they could use to say that they had uncovered its secrets. It was not until much more recently that a scientific consensus begun to finally form about the complex role of Chaban. The truth about Chaban is actually more fascinating than giants or castles. Chaban was the main temple of a religious cult, like the cult of Fenn. Ooh, now we're getting into the discussion how Forrest Fenn built a cult. All right, let's read on. One that has wielded a far-reaching and dominant influence over the surrounding island people who made up the Chaban culture. It was this compelling and overarching religious dominion, not soldiers or weapons, that kept the Chaban culture united for over 1,000 years. The culture of Chaban was a very special one. Chaban was the first island civilization in Peru. The Chaban not only lived but thrived in the high altitudes of the Andes Mountains, where no people had done so before. The Chaban excelled in a number of skills, including monument design, monument design, metallurgy, sculpture, and advanced engineering of architecture and hydraulics. The Shaban was erected as a spiritual and emotional epicenter of the Shaban culture. Its high walls surrounded a mysterious religious temple that offered an immersive experience so unique that thousands of people traveled for hundreds of miles, often bringing valuables as offerings. Shaban was intentionally built to create an experience of the supernatural. What the Shaban people encountered within the walls was the field that led to the rise of the religious cult and its widespread following. To understand Shaban better, we might imagine following an ancient Shaban traveler who has come from far away and arrived at the foot of this great temple. As if it is a gigantic puzzle box, Shaban has no discernible entrance. Our traveler, looking up at the temple from its front courtyard, would have only seen a vast wall from which protruded a series of huge sculpted heads 3 stories above. Atop these walls was a flattened area where shaman priests would stand and perform ceremonies. Yet the stairs to the roof were completely hidden. How the priests came to be standing above the temple would have been another mystery of our visitor. Having brought a valuable offering, our companion might have been rewarded with an entry time. At the appropriate moment, he or she would be led by a temple elder through a nondescript entrance around the side of the shaman. Here, our sojourner would be presented with the psychedelics to drink, preparing his or her mind for the temple's experience. Once inside the temple, it became a sprawling labyrinth, a maze consisting of narrow tunnels, some branching out, others circling back onto one another, and some resolving into dead ends. These tunnels had no windows. On entering the temple would have seemed dark and secretive. The tunnels of Shaban were created to amaze, captivate, and enthrall its guests. The immersion was achieved through various special effects. Further in, tunnels were lit by torchlight. Nails were embedded in the walls so that the light illuminating the passages would reflect from them, creating a sparkling hypnotic effect. Mirrors were hung above the walls as speculums for refracting light to enhance the hallucinogenic vibe. Oh God, I feel like I'm going through the Cumberland Gap right now. I'm in my car and I just entered the tunnel. Or I'm on the Eisenhower Tunnel now, out in Colorado. I'm getting the psychedelic effect of being in a tunnel that was dark. It's a good thing my lights are on my car. So, as I was reading this, I was thinking about the whole immersive experience of augmented reality that we can now experience. So, back in the day, you had to take some psychedelic drugs and be placed in the dark in order to get this experience. But now, I'm just thinking you could have the same experience if you were in an augmented reality. Did we not all get led into the temple by our fearless leader Forrest Fenn when he gave us the instructions uh, uh, that were so vague that we entered the confirmation bias realm? Okay, so here is a AI artist rendering of what this author might be talking about. And he's showing us a door. Oh, look, it's Chad Bird's door. Chad Bird? Chad Bird, you just stole your door. So we're now officially in the John Collins Black book. We're now at the same spot in JCB's book as the people that are chasing after Chad Bird's rooster feathers are in his hunt. We're now at the door. We're waiting to see what's behind the door. We're at the door. If Justin Posey's treasure hunt had a door, I'm sure we'd be there too, in his treasure hunt, because all the treasure hunts are at the same place now. They're all at the door. The tunnels themselves extended in various directions on multiple levels. Some of the hallways forced people to travel in a narrow, single file. Within these tight spaces, immense sculptures were placed. The Lanzon, the Tello, Obelisk, and the Raimondi stelae are the three most famous of these carvings. These monuments were inlaid with the forms of eagles, snakes, and cats, and displayed fangs, human arms, legs, fingers, and toes. The images cut into these sculptures were complex. Their densely packed inscriptions were made in a way that forced our visitors to lie on the ground to read them. Inscriptions were made in a way that forced our visitors to lie on the ground to read them. I think that might be important somehow in discovering these treasures, but I'm not sure exactly which puzzle that uh, would be. But when he's mentioning these things, such as walking single file, it reminds me of a prison. Get in line. Put on your orange uniform. Uh, Walk in the line. Uh, and by the way, that actually does kind of look like a prison door there. Anyway, uh, in addition to designing visual and physical stimuli, the Chauvin architects engineered water flows to create intense sound effects. One very unique aspect of the temple is that it's positioned upon the meeting of two rivers, a complex Chauvin hydraulic and aqueduct system whose sophisticated engineering defies archaeological explanation. That fed water from both rivers to where several of the labyrinths and tunnel tunnels converged. Water rushed violently towards visitors in this part of the temple, reverberating with an intense sound that would grow louder and louder as our visitor approached the apex of the hydraulic flow. People standing outside the main temple would have heard the roar of water too, surely increasing their curiosity about what was happening inside. Oh, I'm so glad you gave me a chapter on water filtration earlier, where you tried to be a salesperson for a water filtration company. But alas, let's read on. So, if you were to divine or design something here, uh, the first thing that comes to my mind about water going underneath a sacred temple has to do with the rivers over in Egypt. But again, we're in Peru. And you might extrapolate this and ask your question, why is it that civilizations in Peru built these types of temples on top of water, and so did the people over in Egypt? There seems to be a parallel of the water and the temple being built on top and the aqueduct systems. When you talk about aqueduct systems in modern times, you're mainly talking about the diversion of water from places like Colorado in a very sophisticated way out to California. There is a part of Colorado, and those people that are familiar with Colorado will know about the aqueducts that were built that basically allows the Rocky Ford area to produce all kinds of fruits and vegetables during the season. And most of that is also fed by a aqueduct system that allows for the Rocky Ford area to have uh, its great crops that they raise in that part of Colorado. Similarly, many people in Colorado have given up those water rights and sold them to developers because in the state of Colorado, you can sell your water rights. So I don't know if this is a water rights story. I don't know if this is a temple built on water, but there's several extrapolations you could make from this. The entire construction of Chauvin seems designed to create what would have felt like an intense religious experience. All of these architectural elements conspired to reinforce its spiritual influence on the Chauvin people. Here it would have been very difficult for our visitor to not have suffered from confirmation bias. What but the gods themselves could have created such a place? We know that Chauvin people from both the highlands and the lowlands traveled hundreds of miles to Chauvin, the hunter, to present gifts and offerings and engage the temple's labyrinth. There is evidence that many ceremonies took place on the grounds outside of the temple walls as people awaited their opportunity to enter. Our gold Chauvin drinking vessel, pictured above, may have been used in one of these ceremonies, or it might have just been used uh, for the guy that from California who was the Rajneesh or whatever his name was who gave out the Kool Aid. So this whole story right now is starting to give me the vibe. I just now turned the story into being now giving me the vibe of the story of the congressman and Jim Jones, right? Wasn't it Jim Jones and the cult of Jim Jones, if you will? Did that happen in Peru, by the way? Well, anyway, that would be well. Anyway, I'm not going to work that out. I'll let you just run with that. There is evidence that many ceremonies took place on the grounds outside the temple walls, as people awaited their opportunity to enter. Our golden shavan drinking vessel may have been used in one of these ceremonies, or it might have been brought by a visitor as an offering, a sign of fealty. I don't know if F-E-A-L-T-Y is a word, and respect to the deities. Our chalice might even have held the psychedelics the shaman visitors drank before entering the temple, the Kool-Aid itself. The cumulative effect of the experience the shaman people had at Dahantor created a remarkable, far-reaching loyalty of spiritual followers. I hesitate to judge whether their spiritual experiences were real, as I believe such a topic is too complex. But we do know that the design and the special effects of the temple were intentional and it left a powerful impression. In other words, the story of Jack Stoof was powerful and it left an impression. It's not hard to imagine that the confirmation bias played at least part in the rise and longevity of this dominant spiritual cult called the Nicker Group. Confirmation bias is not rare, it happens to all of us. You and I and everyone we know have fallen victim to it at some point in our lives. It's happened to me, to my mother, one of the sweetest, kindest, most caring women this world has ever known. One particular occasion she still talks about today. Every year so I guess this must be the story of his mom. Every year, our small 200-person congregation would hold an evening Christmas Eve candlelight vigil service. It was my mother's favorite gathering and time of the year. When I was 4, I was a spirited child. My father believed I was much too energetic to attend this event. My mother disagreed. In her enthusiasm for the vigil, my mother could envision a world where even a rambunctious 4-year-old child would enjoy the quietude of the service as much as she did. She debated with my dad, recalling moments of my good behavior as examples, ignoring the majority of times when I had failed to sit still and be quiet when asked to do so. Okay, Real Finder, we're talking to you. Okay? Real Finder, you are acting like a 4-year-old at a church service. Uh, Mother trusted you to behave, and yet you couldn't be quiet. Okay, I got that. I get the message. The solver is being compared to a 4-year-old child. Okay, okay. Uh, John will be fine, she told my dad. She reminded my father of the other church members who brought their children. My dad shook his head in doubt. In the end, my mother got her wish. The Christmas Eve worship service began each year with some dry, uh, somber Baptist hymnals, followed by a short sermon from my father. In front of him stood a table draped in a white cloth. On that table sat an Advent wreath, its candles purple, pink, and white. After the sermon was complete, the people in our congregation got up from their seats and formed a circle that extended the full interior of the worship area. During the service, I had behaved pretty well, sitting mostly still with only a moderate amount of fidgeting and flailing about. As my mom got out of our seats to join the circle, oh, okay. As my mom and I got out of our seats to join the circle, I whispered impatiently to her that I couldn't see anything. I asked her to pick me up. I was a load for my mother to carry, but to keep things from escalating, my mother hoisted me in her arms. Deacons came around the circle and handed out an unlit candle to each person. My mother received hers. I was fascinated by this. When everyone had a candle, the head deacon lit the candles of the Advent wreath, and the interior lighting was turned off. The only light source that remained was the glow of a soft flicker of candlelight from the wreath in front of my father. With candlelight illuminating his face, my dad ceremoniously took the candle he held in his hand and lit it from the Christ candle on the Advent wreath. With his candle flame, he touched the candle of the person to his left. That person did the same with the person on their left, and in this manner the flame steadily stretched around the room as a soft circular glow of candlelight lit up the sanctuary. I was excited when I saw my mother's candlewick burst into flame. I looked around. The room was now filled with a myriad of sparkling lights. This delighted me even more. So this is the canopy of stars. Okay. Uh, for everyone else, the glimmering candles created a contemplative mood, a tone of veneration and calm. The light stretching out around the sanctuary invoked a meditative solace befitting prayer, quiet, reverent, still. All the candles were now lit. My father looked out at his congregation and with a nod invited the people to pray. It was time for reflection and invocation. For me, it was time to sing, "Here comes Peter Cottontail." Oh, as my father stood in front of the center and asked everyone to contemplate their candle flame, he began his words of prayer. As we come together this Christmas Eve to celebrate the birth of Christ, let us simultaneously. I began singing the Easter song that had suddenly popped into my head. Here comes Peter Cottontail, coming down the bunny trail. Let us remember that this is the time of reflection and appreciation. Hippity hoppity, Easter's on its way. Earlier that evening, my mother had convinced herself, despite my father's doubts, that I was old enough to join the Christmas Eve service. Now, this same woman, who held me in one arm and a lighted candle with the other, let out a chirp. Then she gave me a squeeze and a shh. A ripple of laughter made its way around the circle of the church members. My mother prayed. She'd melt into the floor. Meanwhile, I noticed that the people were smiling and chuckling. They must have enjoyed my song. I decided to sing louder. My dad continued after a short pause. Let us remember that on this eve of Christ's birth, there are many less fortunate among. Coming around the bunny trail, hippity hoppity, Easter's on its way. My mom instinctively went to cover my mouth and with her hand, but she quickly realized that doing so might catch me on fire. Instead, she did the only thing she could think of. She ran across the room, through the circle of the candlelight vigil, and out the front church door with me singing, Here comes Peter Cottontail, at the top of my lungs the entire way. My mom had gone from convincing herself that her son should be at church to wanting to get us both as far away from there as fast as she could. If my sweet mother can fall victim to confirmation bias, it can happen to anyone. So, what this narrative or what this story is really telling us, if we want to understand it in its completeness, is that a lead searcher who is filled with confirmation bias will start singing songs about bunny trails. Uh, which can possibly embarrass the person that put the treasure out there, potentially bring light to a problem that doesn't need to exist. And that in order to remedy the situation, it's often necessary to change the focus of people's confirmation bias from one place to another in order to avoid everybody singing, "Here comes Peter Cottontail, hopping down the bunny trail." And so, if we look at the scrapbook that was put out at the time of Shiloh Old in a bunny rabbit suit, right? That was precursor warning that you were on to confirmation bias. And at that point in time, you should have started considering what you were doing and how it was affecting the people around you. Again, the Forrest Fenn treasure hunting community is like a prayer circle. And Forrest Fenn was the minister, the preacher. His wife and family were trying to coddle a 4-year-old who didn't understand the gravity of the situation. And so while they tried to keep that 4-year-old child from singing "Here Comes Peter Cottontail," they couldn't do it. They felt that they had to do something else, and that's when the mother there. So there is okay. So fortunately, there does exist a time-tested and proven way to defend ourselves against confirmation bias. First, we take a moment to consciously stop justifying why our current belief is correct, like posting a blog about how you know things and you know more than other people. Okay, got it? Then we look at all the other reasons why our opinions could be wrong. The more time we spend questioning our beliefs, the better. Of course, if we are deeply emotionally invested in wanting our opinion to be correct, this process can be a little uncomfortable. Yeah, really uncomfortable. Still, these are the necessary actions to avoid confirmation bias and the visual disappointment of not getting the treasure. I mean, of being wrong. When I was younger, I used to think I was always right. Kimberly might argue that I sometimes still do, but I've definitely improved in this regard. I have learned by questioning my assumptions, by putting myself in the shoes of others, and having life serve me some healthy helpings of humble pie. Over time, I've let go of much of the emotional bond of needing to be right, and that made all the difference. Okay, so here's the lesson. Here's the lesson to the searcher, to the finder, to the solver, that you made a mistake. I'm talking to you now. You made a mistake. You started singing "Here Comes Peter Cottontail," hopping down the bunny trail, bringing attention to yourself and me as the preacher, as the hunt creator. And so steps were taken. And my advice at that time would have been, you should have let go of your emotional bond of needing to be right. Because if you would have done that, or if you will do that, it will make the difference. So again, this is all just one big message. If you choose to look for our treasure, try to consciously avoid confirmation bias. In other words, don't blab about everything that you know that might be true. There is no need to force the clues to fit a location you want them to lead you to. Instead, let them guide you in the direction they want you to take. Be willing to consider different options and explore new possibilities. Look both ways before crossing. So, I think this is actually one of the most important chapters in this book because it's a direct lesson as to what you did wrong as a treasure hunter, uh, you know, and how maybe you can move forward and find the treasure, a treasure, if you will. Being more open and less rigid has other advantages too. It allows us to see more opportunities ahead. This makes it a little easier for us to navigate life's ups and downs. In our next chapter, I will share with you an item in our treasure that was once owned by Jackie Onassis. Well, this is something that Forrest Fenn might know. During her time in the White House, Onassis lived a life highlighted by meteoric highs and cratering lows. Through it all, she was steadfast and clear-eyed about what would bring her joy. Onassis became a cultural icon, and for a while, she was the center of the world's attention. However, it's some of the lesser-known details of her life that impress the most. Okay, well, I've been on for a little over an hour. I don't know if does any. Yeah, no, this is just round two today, not round three. Should I go for another round? Has everybody had enough of me reading? Has everybody had enough of me reading and pontificating? What were the message? What were the messages in this book? What do you think? Should I go for another round? What the heck? I'm going to continue. Good to see everybody. If you can't watch this live, catch it in person. Um, is my audio still good? I know that I'm not synced up very well with the camera, but is my audio good? If my audio is good, I'll go ahead and do chapter 10 because this is mainly an audio presentation. Okay, I'm just gonna do it. So here's like I said, I'm not very synced up very well with my camera. I don't know why, but anyway. So chapter 10 is the Jackie Onassis Diamond Brooch. And it says, welcome the good and the bad. Okay. Um, and again, this book was written basically as a message to one person. Man never made any material as resilient as the human spirit. And this is a quote by Bernard Williams. Indeed, this life is a test. It is a test of many things, of our convictions and priorities, our faith and our faithfulness, our patience and our resilience, and in the end, our ultimate desires. And that was a quote by Sherry L. Dew. Sherry Dew. Sherry Dew. All right. So again, we have more lessons, or we have more pontificating for that one person out there who seems to need to have more education. As Shiloh said, they wouldn't find it again anywhere. If you could hide it again, he still wouldn't find it. Oh, that was really helpful when you said that day. Okay, so let's go on with this chapter. I was a competitive, eager child who could be very hard on myself. I remember once standing in a parking lot after a football game, unable to speak through the convulsions of my sobs and snot and tears. Okay, I'll admit I've cried. My dad knelt down beside me, put his hand on my shoulder and said, John, you're hurting now, I know. There are times like this, but this is temporary, son. It's not about when bad things happen. It's about how you respond. Next season, you'll have a chance for a different experience. It's going to be all right. You're going to be okay. I promise you. In that moment, my dad was teaching me about resilience. I was only 11 years old, but his speech could have been a week ago. It remains that vivid. Yeah, the relationship between a father son, a parent, and a child, and is one that can be tear jerking at times. And, the message here is pretty clear, and missed opportunities happen. Uh, but there are times when the sense of embarrassment uh, and unresolved issues in one's life can't fully be understood by another person until maybe it's too late to understand what was really going on. But uh, anyway, today I have one tattoo. It runs down my left forearm. It is written in Sanskrit. The letters roughly translate as I welcome the good with the bad, as they both come from one true source. Each of us know there is both sweet and sour in the human experience. All of us meet with fortune and disappointment as we pursue the things we desire. We all feel the joy of ecstasy and experience the pain of tragedy. It's part of our shared inevitable condition. I am grateful to my father for his speech to me. I haven't always applied his words successfully, for sure, but they have helped me manage some good times and bad. It seems somewhat fitting, then, that out of all of the objects in our treasure, the one in the chapter is my father's favorite. It's the only item in our treasure that when my dad saw it, he turned to me and asked if I might not rather keep it for myself. When the time comes that you get to hold it in your hands, I think you will understand my father's opinion. This item's previous owner knew more about resilience than I hope I have ever a need to learn. She was a woman who understood the lessons taught to me by my father, and she embodied it with incredible grace and humility. Jackie Onassis stood unwavering through every challenge life threw at her, and she did it with class. As I did research on Jackie Onassis, it didn't take me long to realize that a legacy such as hers can easily be accompanied by misconceptions. Iconic individuals like Jackie often get observed through the filters of camera photos. Now, I'm just going to stop now and say that I truly believe that his obsession with photography, a specific type of photography, with the use of cameras is important. As evidenced again is the photograph type of this photograph. Do you think that the outer edge of that photograph right there is accurately depicted in the time frame in which that photograph was taken? No, that border was added to that photograph to draw attention to photography and a specific puzzle in this book. Jackie often gets observed through the filters of cameras, photos, and news reports, and not by the clear lens of reality. Lens. There's a lens on that Appalachian Trail box. Newton is known for his lens discoveries. What struck me about Jackie was how, despite the immense tragedy that befell her, she always stood resolute with clarity about what she wanted to do next. There were many twists and turns during her life, some grand, others bitter, yet Jackie seemed to travel along uh, each one with her eyes open to the road ahead. She did not stray the course away from the things that brought her joy. Jackie was known for a keen eye for fashion and design. Jackie had an artful instinct and a style that inspired people. The magnetism, ah, gravity, magnetism of her appearance drew to it much wider influence than the First Lady ever before or after. She came to wield a major influence on fashion trendsetting around the world. The sapphire brooch, for example, has a refined playfulness when seen in person. It can be worn both as fun and as a sophisticated gathering. Though I must admit, focusing on such superficial aspect of Jackie's reputation seems shallow to me. The same way she curated her life, not her outfits, is much more interesting. A curation usually occurs at some sort of museum. Jackie was talented, picky, and precise. Becoming First Lady was no accident. At a young age, Jackie relentlessly studied culture, learning French and art history. She became a talented writer. From a contest essay she penned at the age of 18, she was selected from 1,279 candidates for an internship at Vogue magazine. When Jackie arrived her first day, she looked around and sized up the office, decided there weren't enough prominent men who worked at the magazine, and promptly quit. She had a vision for her life, and that internship did not fit it. A short time later, she acquired a job at the Washington Times with her own column called Inquiring Camera Girl. Of all the things that the author in this book could focus on, why did he focus on uh, her column, The Inquiring Camera Girl? Well, look at the photograph, look at the back of the book, find an old time photography studio, and go look for the treasure. Jackie walked the streets taking pictures and interviewing people about issues of the day. Her job gave Jackie direct access to a network of media and political influencers. Less than a year and a half later, she met Jack Kennedy. Jack was an up and coming congressman, and Jackie smit him with star-crossed desire. But Jack couldn't date her when they met because she had already accepted another man's engagement proposal. Ultimately, Jackie was not going to let that decision stand in her way. She knew that what she wanted. She returned the first man's ring and accepted Mr. Kennedy's. So we're building the story of, in order to be resilient, sometimes you have to return somebody's property in order to get other property. And that property then comes from somebody else. So if you didn't like the lot that was dealt to you or the hand that was dealt to you by the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt, perhaps consider a proposal from another treasure hunt, and that might prove more fruitful. Their marriage began a period of Jackie's life in which she experienced terrible loss. As is well documented, Jackie rode in the open air alongside her husband in 1963 and was shot and killed in Dallas. Few years on, Jackie would grieve again when one of her best friends and brother-in-law, Robert Kennedy, was also assassinated. Before Jack Kennedy's death, the couple experienced one miscarriage, one stillborn birth, and the death of a third child who lived only a few days after being born. The latter child, Patrick Kennedy, passed away only 3 short months before Jack Kennedy was murdered. The trauma and grief Jackie must have endured during this time in her life was hard for me to imagine. Or anyone. So there's an admission here by the treasure hunt creator that if you are subject to many people dying around you, it must weigh heavily on you. Despite her pain, Jackie displayed great strength. Jack Stoof didn't really care about the deaths. He was willing to take the treasure anyway. After the deaths of her husband and his brother, Jackie desired privacy and seclusion above all else. Thus, Jack moved to Puerto Rico. She wanted a fresh start for her and her children away from the paparazzi and out of the public's eye. Jackie agreed to marry the older Aristotle Onassis. Jack agreed to be the finder of the old man's treasure, who had been pursuing her for quite some time. With Aristotle, Jackie found a man who was able to enjoy with her a quieter life while she focused on her love of art and design. Instead of being a prisoner Again, I mentioned the fact that I think there's a prison, and in Texas there's a prison, and it's a Pokemon who's the prisoner. Anyway, Jackie created a new life for herself and her children, and in it she found contentment. Oh, we all know this word contentment. Oh, this contentment word. Um, Remember when Forrest Fenn said contentment is key? But anyway, Aristotle's death meant that Jackie again needed to take inventory for the next stage of her journey. Jackie came up with a clear vision for what would bring her the most happiness. Instead of drifting further into seclusion, Jackie pivoted back to New York. She became the first former First Lady to enter back into a traditional workplace. When she accepted an editor's position at Viking Press. Oh, go Minnesota! Oh, Viking Press. Hmm. Is this Packer Jack? Is this Packer Jack territory? What is this? Oh, it probably is. If you is this the photograph of Pack? Oh, I get it. This is the time. This is the time where Copper Dan meets Jack at the airport. I got it. Viking Press. I get it. I got it now. After a few years, Jackie transitioned to an editor role at Doubleday, where she worked for the next 16 years until her death. At Doubleday, this means you're going to double the prize. Jackie edited multiple best selling books. Jackie began her career as a writer and ended up as an editor. She had come full circle. Her colleagues say she demanded no special treatment or accommodation. Jackie died doing what she loved. History preservation was important to Jackie Onassis. While at the White House, she created the White House Historical Association. It remains in existence today as a free public resource. The association preserves the history of the White House and provides educational information about it to anybody who wants to learn. So I really just think this is a story about a White House. And the White House is actually located in Texas. It's located at the Sam Houston statue, and it provides information about the White House. The other thing is that in the history of Sam Houston, there's a famous White House involved. So in this chapter, he's telling you the story of Dallas, Texas, right? So all of this, if you want to use this chapter for anything, you use this to find the Pokemon in Texas. Okay? He's basically telling you the story about a White House. He's telling you that it gives information about the history of the area. Earlier, we talked about, looking at 45 feet in the air at something, trying to figure out what the heads mean, right? These chapters put together are giving you the information you need in order to solve the puzzle about the Pokemon box and where it's located. Jackie also took up one large legal fight for the cause of preserving history during her years at Doubleday. At their time in New York City, when important architectural buildings were being destroyed to make way for new business development, a New York court approved the demolition of the New York City's most famous train terminal, Grand Central Station. Jackie Onassis helped the city in a gritty fight to win a battle to overturn the court's decision and to save the famous landmark. One of these puzzles is going to have to do with the train. One of the puzzles in the back of the book actually has a railroad on it. I'm not going to explain it further. Jackie Onassis helped the city in a gritty fight to win a battle to overturn the court's decision to save the famous landmark. History was a particular type of treasure to Jackie, and she preserved her own with the way she lived. Due to circumstances outside of her control, the direction of Jackie Onassis' life was winding. Yet Jackie chose to remain flexible in order to sustain, pliable, and an integral part of resilience. Our path may alter, but our purpose and posture remain the same. Jackie found the ability to rediscover joy despite all the tragedies that befell her. There was a wisdom and a resolve. Jackie was a treasure hunter any of us would be fortunate to have standing by our side. So the lesson here is that even though you've lived your life through all of the deaths in the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt, you can be resilient. You can recover from that. You can have an after experience that will bring back your joy. Our treasure hunt here, of course, is not designed to require any great hardship on you. The stakes are not particularly high. Searching and not finding the treasure will most likely only leave you with happy memories of spending time outdoors with loved ones or with the delightful sights, smells, and sounds of nature around you. This hunt is designed to bring you joy, not suffering. Well, I'm not so sure about that. Still, in everyday routines, there is much I take from Onassis' example. No matter how successful I become in discovering joy in my life, disappointment and tragedy will find me. This much I know. Of course, you were part of that whole game thing. Anyway, but unraveling in the face of loss, okay. But unraveling in the face of loss may rob me of new beginnings. Heartbreak is a grueling, inescapable part of our human experience. Yet there's a solace in acceptance. Any and tragedy can make a person more compassionate towards the pain of others. Through our disappointment, you and I are better prepared to provide words of comfort to others. Short of words, we can offer a hand upon a shoulder or a warm embrace. Small things such as these can lead to outsized rewards. Put your hand on my shoulder. Oh, if I could sing that, I could rock this out in the show tune you wouldn't believe. The fact that my voice is getting raspy because I've read too much today. From this chapter, we turn our attention to the next, one which also tells a story of tragedy. Its misfortune might have been avoided if not for greed. It's a tale about a ship's captain named Fonseca, whose avarice resulted in his losing the treasure he had worked so hard for and the ship he loved so dearly. Fonseca learned the hard way that greed is a siren. It's a trickster. Greed offers an alluring hand, proposing to guide a man to fortune, while instead leading him towards the dead cold depths of an ocean floor. Let us examine greed. Know thy foe, so that you may defeat him. Okay, so I actually think this whole chapter was a retelling of the grief that came about in the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt and how many of us attacked it and accepted it. Others looked at it as a problem, and some people just went on about their businesses and nothing happened. And so I think there is the lesson there to the community of searchers who were involved in that as to how to approach what happened with the searcher deaths in the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt. I've yet to get my warm embrace from John. I'd rather get one from Kimberly, honestly. But anyway, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop the presses. see, how I put that in there, double day. I'm going to stop the presses at the end of that chapter, and I'll take up another segment of this book tomorrow. But I hope you can see how I approach this whole entire treasure hunt book as a message of what treasure hunters did wrong and why they didn't get the treasure in the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt. And sprinkled in there are the clues on the new treasure hunt and where to go find it. But again, I have a propensity for being incorrect about most everything. If you like these shows, give it a thumbs down. Don't give it a thumbs up. The more thumbs up I get, the less I'm inclined to want to do another show. Because I live in the negativity of the world. I don't live in the joyous part of the world. How's everybody doing? Fantastic. Are you still here? How's the bunghole? Is it still whistling? Somebody read somebody's mind. Feminine, says Nomadic. 45 for MJ. All right. I realize people just log in. I've reached the point where I realize people just log into my stream and then they go to the bathroom, take a shower, do the laundry. Then they come back to their computer just to make me feel like people are listening to what I have to say. It's all good. It's all good. Don't be running across the living room to comment in the chat just to confirm my suspicions. Just I'll just hang up. I don't need confirmation. It's over. Bye bye. Oh, see, Trust of Living's at least. Trust of Living's the only honest person here. He's admitting to the nap. Well, I'm glad that you're using me as your AMSR, the David Paisano Show, otherwise known as AMSR for treasure hunters. Oh God, I truly hope I can get my video synced up with my audio. I think I deleted like 1.2 gig of unnecessary files, thinking that that was why my computer wouldn't run fast enough, but that didn't seem to solve the problem. All right, everybody have a good night. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm trying to bust through this book before it warms up outside and I have things to do.